In the last piano tips video, we talked about the technique I named weighting, which is basically giving certain notes more emphasis than others. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about arcing, which is a more global principle that applies to not only just music, but really everything. It's the concept of push then rest, kind of going up and going down. In music, you see this principle occurring again and again and again, and there's something subconscious in our brains that expects things to resolve a certain way or to rest a certain way. And in the real world, it applies to something like rock climbing. You don't start at the top of the mountain and work your way down and then back up. It's the other way around. First you climb the mountain and then you come down the mountain. And music is exactly the same way. And if you'll notice in a lot of songs, once I point this out and we go over it with the keyboard, that phrasing in music has this arcing way about it. It goes kind of in these kinds of patterns where it goes up and then down. It doesn't go down and then up, or down then up then down. It always kind of takes on this type of a pattern, and that affects pitch. Usually melodies follow an incline in the melody and then a decline at the end of the phrase. An incline at the beginning of the phrase and then a decline. It also applies to the volume of a phrase. The phrase will start maybe at a medium loud and then get louder and then back down again. And those are relative. You could start quiet and go, but the general principle is that it'll start low, move high, and then end low. At times, especially in rubato music, it can also take on the characteristics of tempo. As you play the middle of the phrase, the tempo might slightly increase, and at the end of the phrase, the tempo would decrease. Now, in popular music, usually music is locked to a specific rhythm. What will happen is that as you get to the end of the song, you will kind of retard, which is basically the process of slowing it down to come into the end of the song. So you see this recurring more and more. We're going to kind of look at some songs at the keyboard so you can kind of see this principle in action.
The three melodies that I want to show you today all follow the arcing principle that I was talking about earlier. And the first of which is the most universally known melody to piano players, which is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Let's listen to that real quick. And as you can see, that's a perfect example of an arc. Started on the C, went up to the G halfway down and got louder, and then ended the phrase down on C. So that was a perfect arc, right? So let's go over to another genre. Let's look at Amazing Grace. See what that does. That's the first 1/4 of the verse, but it's the first complete phrase which has an arc. Started on the G, went up to the E ultimately, and then ended the phrase back down on G. But let's continue and see what it does as we go through the song. Okay, now we are halfway through the verse, and it's ended up here on this high G. So from the very beginning that we played up to here, that's kind of a half arc because we started low, but now halfway down the verse, we decided to end on a high note. So that's the first half of the arc. So even though we've had two complete phrases, one of them arced perfectly, that arc was actually inside of another arc that's over the entire verse. So you can kind of have phrasing inside of phrasing. Let's listen to the whole complete first half of the verse again. I'll show you what I mean. So the overall theme from the beginning of the verse to here was kind of going up. But in that going up, we had kind of a little arc. So it kind of went like that. So, and that is that happens a lot. So you'll find kind of some multidimensional examples of how the phrasing works. Let's continue on and finish out the verse. Now that's the third part of the verse, and that was a complete phrase right there with an arc, but we're not quite through from our overall arc of the verse, so let's play that last bit. So now we have completed our verse with our overall arcing of the entire verse with two little smaller arcs. So hopefully that makes sense the way that's explained. That's kind of a complex example, but it kind of shows you the role that phrasing has. But if you ever get into writing melodies or playing them, it's good to keep that in mind as you play a melody. Just sit at a keyboard if you can pick out a song by ear, or if you know one by ear. Play with different melodies and just see how the arcing principle works out in the songs that you choose. I bet you more chances than not they're going to all follow that same principle. Finally, let's take a look at Mary Had a Little Lamb. This is an example of where it might be trickier to hear the arc, but yet it's still there. See, now that's strange because it seems to be in reverse. Right? But if we keep going... Oh, wait, we actually did go up. Even though it seemed at first it was a reverse arc, it actually ended the first half of that verse up on this G. So let's keep going. Okay, so again, even though it wasn't a perfect example, we still started kind of mid to low, went higher, and ended the phrase lower. So go and have some fun with that and play with that and play out some different melodies and see if you can recognize the arcing patterns. Because if you can make yourself conscious of these things as you play, then it'll really improve and make you more deliberate in how you phrase a melody. It'll make your music sound much better.
Thanks again for stopping by and checking out this latest edition of Piano Tips. Please reply to this and give me your questions. And if there's anything that you would like to learn or any questions you might have, feel free to ask, and I would love to spend some time in this forum to help you out. All right, have a great one and see you soon.